I'd like to know how you come into the story, and I'd like to know how this beautiful marriage of two fine-looking gentlemen contributes to the story. Because of course there's the individual joining the company, but then you two have formed a very powerful and important nexus and symbiosis within the company. I've given you a huge ramp up now, so I hope you can go with me on that energy, but please tell me about how you joined the story, at what point you joined, and what does your union mean, and how does that work?
Sure, I'll start and then you can take over, because your work on the code goes back much earlier than my own in terms of its development, and you've been involved in all aspects of it. So for me, as you recall, I teamed up with AP for a big project, an auction celebrating Muhammad Ali and Arnold Schwarzenegger's foundations back in the year 2000. It was called Time to Give. I became close with the company at that point and really enjoyed the spirit and the energy of the company. And I joined full-time in 2013, initially as the historian. In between those years, I was doing lots of projects pertaining to Audemars Piguet, working with collectors, working with clients, both on vintage and modern watches. Because as you know, and we've discussed, Andrew, over the last 20 years, those worlds have very much come together. Now, when I joined Audemars Piguet in 2013, shortly after, I knew something was up. But my initial involvement in Code 1159 was initially on more aesthetic aspects. Things like signatures, lug design. It was more on touch points as early designs were being discussed. But Luca over here has been much more intimately connected to the whole genesis of the project. And I'm actually excited to hear what you have to say on this, Luca, because I don't think I've heard this whole story myself.
I don't think so, Michael. So from my point, we started the job on the Code 1159 in 2012. And at that time, I joined the company in 2011, and I was working on the complication side. And as you know, with this collection, it's quite unique that we came with 13 new references at the same time. And among them, we had 6 movements and 3 were completely new. So I was working on the complication side, and we joined the code development in 2016. So just after the development of the automatic and the chronograph, we joined with the complication program in order to be able to reach the full development for the 13 references in 2019. So it was really a challenge of synchronization. And we were working...
How long was the runway? Luca, do you mind if I ask, sorry to talk over you there, do you mind if I ask how long was the runway to Code 1159 as opposed to, I suppose all collections require some enormous preparation, but like you said, this wasn't a sort of a slow drip. This was an explosion at launch. Did that mean that the runway leading up to launch was a lot longer than usual?
It was, because we had both to develop the movement, and we developed our first in-house integrated chronograph, and we also had to develop the new collection, new geometry, new shapes, and new processes. And all this takes a long time. So you start with the movement, they have the longer time to develop, then you join with the case, and you add all the ingredients regarding the processes, the way you have to organize yourself in the manufacturer, because it changes a lot from the other watches we were doing at that time. And we were to synchronize 3 different industrial sites in Le Locle, Le Brassus, and Meyrin. And making all those people working together was a great challenge. And it really is a milestone for the company in terms of working together.
Just to rephrase how different this was, because you asked what was the same and what's different, Andrew. Remember, Royal Oak, only one version from 72 until 76. Yep. Offshore, only one version from 93 until 97. Concept, only one version from 02 until I think 05 is when the Carbon concept was debuted. All of those models had 3, 4, 5 years of really just one model. Whereas
singularity.
Singularity is a perfect way of saying it. And that is where the code collection was fundamentally different in that sense. And it's also, what's interesting about what you mentioning 2016 is around the time, you and I already knew each other, but that's when the time when we started really starting to converse quite a bit more, because that's when I was starting to shift over from this role of historian and getting closer to the work that these guys were doing. And Andrew, that's where my mind expanded, and I realized how little I knew of and what one of many things that I've learned working with Luca is the watchmaker is, of course, the center. The bench is the center, but the engineers and the technicians and the suppliers and all of these other entities, the importance of these men and women in 21st century watchmaking is huge. And we speak of this industry sometimes as if it's still the 19th century. And that's great to show respect to the watchmaker and the traditional methodologies. And that always should be the prime notion, but not at the expense of the whole bigger picture. And my involvement, and eventually now I even sit together with Luca and his team. I'm the naive kid in the room on those R&D meetings, but I at least get to bring the energy of clients, collectors, enthusiasts into that room and sit and listen to these people break down how movements are developed and how the movements can be conceptualized for future designs.
You'll come in and talk about a contact point, a lug design, or perhaps, again, relating to tactility, relating to feel on wrist, relating to more than just the aesthetics. Can you point to an example on a code model where Michael's left a fingerprint?